As you probably know, we are broadcasting from the grounds of the Democratic National Convention here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We are outside the main convention hall right now, and joining us, I'm happy to say, is Maya Rockeymoore.
Hi.
Maya is the president and CEO of Global Policy Solutions, LLC, which comes up with a lot of great answers on public policy and what's going on in the world today. And we're also right now accompanied by a singer-songwriter whose name I can't place. I don't know if that's bleeding through, Brad, but oh yeah, he says. So we have theme music too.
We have theme music.
Thanks for joining us,
And
Maya.
we are going to rise up.
We are going to rise up, right? All right. So how are you doing?
I'm doing great. You know, I've been here since Sunday. It's been an incredible experience. A lot of highs and lows, I think, in terms of the Democratic Convention. But you know, a lot of energy in this space, and I'm actually encouraged that so many people are so passionate about the future direction of this country that they're willing to actually participate, not sit on the sidelines, not in an armchair, but to actually be out and engaged. And regardless of whether it's, you know, demonstrating or protesting or, you know, being a delegate, they're actually participating, and that's encouraging for democracy.
Yeah, you know, I have to say, I didn't go to the Republican convention. I thought about it, you know, just to cover it. But I have to say, I look around, it makes me proud to see the people that are here. That I will say, before we even get to the policy or the candidates or whatever, just to look around us at so many women delegates, so many people of color delegates, people LGBTQ, disabled, I mean, you name it, you know, the full spectrum of human experience seems to be represented here and active here. And that seems to me to be a big difference from the Republicans.
This is what America looks like. Last week is not what America looks like. When they say make America great again, the again is a white society where everyone else is repressed. And they have rigged the system in a way to actually advantage them and keep others excluded. And the fact of the matter is that we're not going back to that. And but yet that's what they're celebrating. And so, you know, we're here this week to actually celebrate the great diversity of the Democratic Party and of the American people. And I think it's very encouraging that we're seeing so many people of different faiths, of different sexual or identifications, of different races and ethnicities. I mean, it's fantastic how diverse this place is.
Yeah, the way I would say that, and we're talking with Maya Rockeymoore of Global Policy Solutions, is one, it's better because it's where the future is, and two, it's more fun. You know, it's just it is. You know, and let's talk for a second though about let's talk. I'd be interested in your thoughts about something though, because it occurred to me when you were talking about the RNC. The big thing now, you've probably seen the polls that say Nate Silver saying that if the election was held today, 57% chance that Donald Trump would win. Now, the reason why he says that, now, I don't think that's what's going to happen, but the reason why he says that, because of the white working class in Ohio and Michigan and so on. So it almost seems like Trump, he's playing this old organ that's going out of, you know, it's going to be obsolete someday. But right now there's still, it resonates with a lot of people. At the same time, you have this white working class whose prospects are dying. You have these increased deaths of despair. You have white people with only high school education. You know, their health situation is worse, their financial situation is worse. And to me, what Trump is doing is like any demagogue. He's taking their declining situation and he's saying, blame these people. Blame the Muslims, blame the Latinos, blame the African Americans, blame the gays, whoever you want to blame. But to me, it's what's the answer? That to me seems to be so unnecessary for people to be divided like that.
The fact of the matter is that Trump is playing the race card.
Yeah,
remember the race card?
That's the short version.
This is the race card.
Yeah.
But it's the white race card.
Right.
And he's trying to wrap it up in an economic message of anti-trade, of pro-worker, etc. Yet we know from his past and his history that he absolutely has no leg to stand on in terms of legitimately championing the causes of the working class Americans. And yet, you know, he's actually calling their tune when it comes to the siren call of racial superiority and pride, etc. And they're falling in line because that is the history of this country. Just to be frank about it. And they did better. Literally, the same populations
Sure.
did better when everybody else was excluded from the
Right.
economy. They now have to compete not just with Americans of diverse backgrounds, but with people from around the world because of the nature of the economic globalism. And they don't
because
like
of the
it.
nature of the trade deals
They
we've
don't
cut,
like it,
too.
and the Brexit people don't
Right,
like it.
right.
But let me tell you this. I mean, the reason why we know that race trumps, everything
Uh-huh.
else in Trump land is because, the same fate has befallen, people with a high school degree of different backgrounds, African Americans
Right.
who were in manufacturing.
Right.
People of color who were in manufacturing have also suffered, and yet you don't see them flocking to the RNC. Or to the Trump message
Right.
because of any economic message. What we see as the common rallying factor around Trump is race.
No, for sure. I mean, if you talk to their people off the record, you talk to their strategists, they're upfront about it. They're saying, no, we're going for the white working class male.
Right.
They'll tell you that. They're not going to
Yeah.
say, well, we're going for people who have been disenfranchised by the 1%. That's not what they're going to tell you. They may talk like that, but they say, no, we want the white folks. That's what they'll say.
And they're going after Bernie voters, disaffected Bernie voters who are white, because they think that they can pull them in. And so it'll be interesting to see. And actually, after seeing yesterday, where the Bernie folks were yelling over all of these African American people of color up on stage, Congress people, they didn't do that to everybody. They did it to certain people. And it tended to be the loudest interruptions tended to be with African Americans from a predominantly white Bernie delegation. That
I
is
didn't
not
see that.
it's
That's-
not
yeah.
good optics.
Right.
First
Oh,
of
for
all,
sure. Yeah.
but second of all, it sends a damning message about the issue of even progressives and the issue of race, which has been an issue for Bernie's folks for a while now because he did not carry the South. And you've got to wonder, with a man with a message that's so progressive, why he could not rally African Americans around that message, given their same situation.
Well, let's unpack that a little bit because it's a really important issue. And
Right.
again, we're talking with Maya Rockeymoore of Global Policy Solutions. One piece of that is, the polls show that 90% of Bernie supporters have already said they're going to vote for Hillary Clinton. So you're talking about a vocal minority.
Is it that high?
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, and we'll put a correction. But last I heard, 90% something like 8% said that they would consider
I
voting
thought it
for
was
Trump.
more like 75%, but it may be 90%.
Or well,
Okay.
the one statistic I will stand by is I think no more than 8% have said they would consider voting for Trump.
Okay.
So, but on the other hand, Bernie felt he could reach some of those Trump voters with a more politically progressive message.
And he could have.
I think he could
He
have
did.
too. So I guess what I'm worried about is a fractioning of the progressive message between the economic message and the racial message.
So this is what Bernie never understood, and this is what I'm going to tell you now, is that there is no separation. America has a racialized and gendered economy. Women, people of color, they can play by the rules, do everything that they're told, and still get screwed by this economy because of the way that it's structured. It's structured, we allow the exploitation of people of color and women in terms of the wage gap. We talk about it in sterile
Right.
terms. We talk about it in terms of equal pay for equal work. We talk about it in terms of the wealth gap. We talk about it in terms of all these sterile policy terms.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is that it's baked into the cake in terms of how the U.S. economy works. You see exploitation in everything from the labor market to the housing market to the financial sector, to the auto loan sector. Cars, you name it. You see a racialized and gendered economy where people of color and women are exploited on a regular basis. You
No
can point to those
question.
statistics.
No question.
And so when you try to
So-
treat race as a side issue in that kind of paradigm, then you're completely missing the point, and you're not able to authentically speak to the people who experience this.
So on the other hand, we had, and I don't want to rehash the primaries, but we also had people running who maybe spoke the right language on race, but were very close to the Wall Street institutions that
Yeah.
were practicing some of these economic policies that are so harmful to people of color, to minorities, to, and talking about exactly what you're talking about, the payday loans, the auto lending, the flat up redlining, prejudicial way these loans are handled, how real estate and so on are handled, the predatory behavior towards African American communities by the banks and so on. So it seems to me like there are these two pieces of a puzzle just waiting to be put together like that.
So two things with regards to that. One is that African Americans in particular remembered the Clinton years, and they were relatively good economically for African Americans. It was prior to the subprime mortgage crisis. Wages were the nation's economy was in a brighter space, and African Americans were doing relatively well. And then Bush came in, and the whole economy collapsed. And people of color, I don't know if you know, that between 2005 and 2009, African Americans, Latino Americans, and Asian Americans collectively lost more than half of their net worth.
I did
compared
know that,
to only
actually,
16% of whites.
Yeah.
And so what we saw was devastation in terms of the economic situation of these populations. And so they're remembering their good old days under the Clinton years in one respect. In another respect, a lot of people felt like it was Hillary's turn, that she fought hard the first time, didn't win, served admirably and respectfully in an Obama administration. And then they felt like, well, we want to now reward her.
So there was a kind of loyalty element there.
There's a loyalty.
I also felt, looking at it, I was in the Bernie campaign at the time, I also felt that there was a lot of, we know her, which is, people do that, but as you know, Bernie did better among younger people of all races, of all groups, all segments. And I thought we had, aside from the demonstrations, a good coming together last night. I don't know what you think, but I thought it was strong.
Yeah. So I've got to tell you that aside from the demonstrations, which were hectic, last night was fabulous. I thought that the lineup was great. Michelle Obama was for me, the highlight of the evening. She hit a home run out of the park. But I thought that Bernie was gracious. He gave his message. And let me tell you this. As you well know, I work with Bernie Sanders and his team on Social Security expansion. I'm in his corner on prescription drugs. I mean, we work on a lot of issues that are similar and supportive, debt-free education, et cetera. I think that what we have seen here is that he has unleashed the power, I think, of the progressive left in a way that we shouldn't allow to be put back into a box.
Right.
I think it's kind of a sad signal that the second on the ticket was not a progressive necessarily.
I agree.
But I think that what needs to happen now is that we've seen the formula, and the formula that works is being vocal about the issues. And so, there's been a lot of learning that's taken place, a lot of communicating and bonding. So it'll be interesting for me to see where Bernie takes this in terms of investing in organizations that I hear that he's going to be building, and how that's actually the political education of a disaffected population is going to affect the two-party system here in America.
Yeah, I think that's really, really well put, and I am very interested to see. Here's my feeling, and maybe this will be our last area of discussion, Maya Rockeymoore, but here's kind of the way I see, it's almost like a Venn diagram with three parts to it. I see people who understand the intersectionality of economics and identity issues, for lack of a better term. Okay, race, gender, sexuality, and so on. I see the people who see those as what I know you see them as, and what I see them as well, which is it's a matrix that can't be pulled apart, Then I see people who get the economic piece or who exploit it for racial reasons, like the Trumps of this world. Then there are a few people, I think, who might be comfortable. They're great on the identity issues, but they want to keep the money. I don't know a more elegant way to put it. So they're fine with promoting racial issues, but when you talk about really shifting the economic paradigm and pushing for economic justice, they might not be there. So I see a potential. We talked about the friction between this sort of economics-only people and this ideal, cluster of values. What do you think about that? Is that a thing people should be concerned about? I mean, I could name somebody, for example, in this Democratic Party who to me symbolizes that a little bit, but...
who would that be?
Is
the senator?
A senator, a certain Eastern senator.
Was he a speaker last night?
Coincidentally, he happened to be. So you must be psychic.
So yeah, that is a very interesting and to me, that message comes off as inauthentic because the Wall Street ties, the history of kind of having this kind of and what do you call it? It's neoliberal paradigm way of operating, and yet speaking in a way of social justice that actually makes people lulls people to sleep. But it comes through as inauthentic, and it'll be interesting to see whether that person can ever rise as high as he aspires to because of it.
Right. Yeah. In his case, I would say it's a closeness to banking. I guess the other issue we could close with is, can we get a right distance between the Democratic Party and its leadership, or do we have it already, in your opinion, and let's say Big Pharma or some of the other big health interests?
I didn't hear the first part. Can we get a what?
Can we get an appropriate level of distance between Democratic Party institutions and, let's say, Big Pharma?
Not when we have this certain campaign finance. I mean, the way that we're doing campaigns now is, literally, they pay big bucks on a daily basis during the week while Congress is in session for the privilege of doing these fundraisers where they sit around a table, maybe small as 10 to 15 people with a member of Congress, and they paid big bucks to sit there, and they get to have their issues directly heard by members of Congress, and that is the way the fundraising system works. The same thing for these other larger fundraisers where they get access and they get favor is curried because of the way our campaign finance laws work. Until we fundamentally change that, there is not going to be light between these big industries and policymakers.
Unfortunately, I have to agree with you on that, so we know what our mission is. We know what we got to get changed,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with you, Richard.
Thank you, Maya Rockeymoore, President of Global Policy Solutions, as always.
Take care.